broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Yes, indeed, wages are up, jobs are up, and incomes are up. We learned yesterday the Obama economic recovery is working. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bill Press Show on this Wednesday, September 14th. So good to see you. We are here in our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., but we're also there with you all across this great land of ours on your local radio station and on Free Speech TV. So you can listen, you can watch anywhere, coast to coast, and we appreciate your being with us this morning. We also want to hear from you about what you think about the issues of the day. A good way to do so is to just give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Our team here in place this morning, Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson, as always. Hello, guys.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yes,
Here we go.
Indeed. Thanks for being there with Ray Rogers, who is ready for your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding, our videographer. Lights, camera, action. We're looking good on Free Speech TV, thanks to Cyprian Bolding. And lots going on with Congress back in town. Well, not a lot, but a few things going on with Congress back in town. And it gives us a chance to say hello to some good friends. Congressman Mark Pocan was just here in the last half hour, and we welcome one of his colleagues now, longtime friend of mine from New York's 10th Congressional District, Congressman Jerry Nadler. Congressman, good to see you.
Good morning. Good to be here.
We go way back to Crossfire days.
Yep.
Well, there was good times then. And talk about almost deja vu. So I just remember you so well from the Judiciary Committee during the impeachment hearings.
Oh, yes.
Were you just to shred those anti-Clinton witnesses with your great legal skills?
Well, what was very interesting there was when I realized there was going to be an impeachment attempt, I started reading everything I could get my hands on what is an impeachable offense. There was a book by Raoul Berger called Impeachment, going back to the 16th century. And by far, the best good analysis of that was that I found and read and based everything I said on was the majority report of the Senate Judiciary Committee from 1973, written by Hillary Rodham.
Really?
Yes.
Her report when she was working on that committee. That is fascinating. Yep. Yeah, right. So now we're talking about an impeachment trial again for the head of the IRS.
This is insane. It's purely insane. Even the Republicans, most of them recognize it as insane. This is the crazies, the Freedom Caucus, so-called, who want to just punish. What is so crazy is that the alleged misconduct by the IRS all occurred before this fellow was there.
I thought, that's what I thought, yeah.
And so the impeachment would be based on the fact that he supposedly, this isn't true, but he supposedly was not forthcoming enough in giving them material they wanted about what happened before he got there. And that's nonsense. And there's no basis for, the original draft of the impeachment provision in the Constitution said you could be impeached for treason, bribery, high crimes and misdemeanors, and maladministration. They took out the maladministration because they didn't want an impeachment for that. An impeachment was supposed to be only to defend, only against misuse of presidential power or misuse of your own power if you're not the president, but the power of the office to destroy liberty or to destroy the separation of powers, to destroy this structure and functioning of government in which liberty depended. It was not a punishment for a crime. It was what I just said. And this is so far, this is ridiculous.
Right. Now, as a member of the White House press corps, I go to the briefings almost every day. And Monday I was there. This was the first briefing since the president's Asia trip. And a lot of the talk was about the so-called September 11 legislation. And Josh Earnest was on his high horse saying, if Congress passes this bill, we are going to veto it because it threatens our national security. It puts our military at risk, very, very strong. And he said, we think we can even override a veto. What is the story on this legislation? What does it do, and where do you stand on it?
Well, I was the lead Democratic sponsor on this bill
There you go.
in the House.
Yes.
Chuck Schumer in the Senate, Peter King and I did it. Peter's a Republican, did it in the House. So I support it, obviously. I think it's a very good piece of legislation, and it's been widely misreported as to what it does. If a foreign government, let's say Saudi Arabia, if a foreign government commits an act of terrorism against an American in the United States, then you can certainly sue that foreign government in an American court without question. Collecting, they have to have some sort of assets here which you can collect against, but the jurisdiction is and they have to have some sort of presence in the country, but the jurisdiction is clear.
You say under existing law?
Under existing law. There are 3 points that have to be made. That's point one. Point two, if the Saudi Arabian government decided to finance Al-Qaeda committing an act of terrorism in the United States, and the Saudi Arabian agent met the Al-Qaeda terrorist in a cafe in New York and handed him a bag of money and said, "Here, use it for what you want to do," there's no question you could sue the Saudi Arabian government. The question arises if the Saudi Arabian government wants to finance that terrorist attack in the United States, but instead of handing the bag of cash in a New York cafe, does so in a Paris cafe. Mm-hmm. That's the question. Can you then sue the Saudi Arabians for an act that occurred abroad to aid terrorism here? The courts have gone both ways on this. The courts have been it's been going up and down in courts for years. What this bill does is to clarify that one point, that you can sue a foreign government for supporting an act of terrorism that occurs in the United States, even if their act of support, their handing the bag of cash, occurred elsewhere, not only if it occurred in the United States. That's what the bill does.
And why shouldn't we?
That's such a clear explanation of the bill, right?
Yeah.
Like, remove all the BS that you hear about, right? Like, that's right to the heart of it.
Bill does.
No, I must admit, I've not looked into this because to me, on the surface of it, it just made sense from the beginning. And now suddenly all this slap, and it's got bipartisan support.
So it passed unanimously in both houses.
Okay, I didn't realize. Unanimously in both houses. Obviously, it has a lot of appeal. It makes a lot of sense. Why is the White House so out of bounds on this thing?
Well,
is it the Pentagon?
I'm speculating here, obviously.
Okay.
I don't really know. I mean, there are two levels of attack that's been made. I think the White House has only made one. I'm not sure. And that is the Saudi Arabians are furious. They clearly are.
Right.
And they've made all sorts of threats. They would withdraw investments in the United States, all sorts of things, et cetera, et cetera.
And they own a lot of American paper.
They own a lot of American paper, and they'll dump the paper, et cetera. I don't believe this for a minute. The Saudi Arabians, in fact, I'm about 2/3 of the way through a book by Dennis Ross called Doomed to Succeed, which is a history of the American-Israeli relationship from Truman up to date. Mm-hmm. And one theme in that book is that the Arabs, including the Saudis specifically, we always worry. Somebody in every administration, in the State Department, in the Pentagon, somebody in every administration, and sometimes they're more powerful in the administration, sometimes less, sometimes they listen to, sometimes not, but somebody always argues that we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't help the Israelis with this, we shouldn't do this, because the Arabs will get really angry and take it out on us. And Ross's argument, which he shows consistently to be true, is that is never correct, or almost never correct. The Arabs, and the Saudis specifically, will do what's in their interest. Mm-hmm. And while they may yell and scream about Israel, or in this case about this, they will do what's in their interest. And what's in their interest is we are their largest arms supplier. In fact, they're one of our largest arms customers. We are supporting them. They regard themselves, and they are, in effect, fighting a war for dominance in the Arab area,
in the Arab world,
with
right?
The Sunnis versus Shiites, headed by Saudi Arabia versus Iran. We are their allies in that. Russia is the allies with Iran. They're not going to upset that. They need our help. They need our help in tremendous ways, and our interests align. They will huff and they will puff and they'll scream about this, and then they'll forget about it.
All right. So that's one possible reason why the White House would be for it.
Well, that is one major reason. That's probably the major reason. The other reason, which I've heard expressed against it, I'm not sure the White House has said this, to be fair, is that this would subject the United States. This might subject the United States to suit abroad. We launched a drone attack in Pakistan, and unfortunately some innocents are killed. They could sue us.
Right.
Now the
That's the argument that Josh Earnest was using the other day.
Then the White House
putting the military at risk.
I don't really see that argument at all for the following reason. Depending on Pakistan, well, let's assume it's Pakistan. Depending on the foreign law, I mean, it's our law determines what jurisdiction our courts have. And what this bill does is it clarifies a question of the jurisdiction of an American court. Depending on the Pakistani law, if the United States launched a drone which killed an innocent in Pakistan, that's a direct action in Pakistan by the American government, and if Pakistani law so provided, they could sue us today. Again, what we're dealing with would be if an American agent, if an American agent went to Pakistan and paid somebody to commit an act of terror, if Pakistani law so provided, they could sue us now. The only thing this affects really is if an American agent met with a Pakistani agent in Paris or in New York, and said, "Why don't you do this? And here's some money to help you." So I don't. The parade of horribles that they talk about is all there now, depending on the foreign law.
By the way, my fuzzy memory has come. What I remember now is that Josh Earnest kept repeating the phrase "national sovereignty," that this would sort of undermine the national sovereignty, sovereign immunity of a nation, which would put our sovereign immunity at risk.
Well,
we
have every nation enjoys sovereign immunity. You can't sue a country unless it consents to be sued. The United States passed this. We have passed limits on our own sovereign immunity so people can sue us. If a truck owned by the federal government runs a red light and God forbid and hurts somebody, they can sue the federal government because our law provides exceptions to sovereign immunity.
Right.
This question is only a question of a specific with respect to one of those exceptions to sovereign immunity. We have consented to a lot of that, and Saudi Arabia has consented to some of it, and some other countries have, more or less.
All right. So where is this legislation? It's passed Congress now.
Passed the Senate unanimously. Passed the House last Friday unanimously.
So it's on the president's desk,
yes.
isn't it? He says he's going to veto it with glee. If it passed unanimously in both houses, you'll be able to override his veto. Are you confident of that?
Confident? Yeah, probably. I suspect we would, because it's even if the let me be political for a moment, not political, political pundit for a moment. Even if the White House were right in its arguments, which I don't think they are, but even if the White House were right in its arguments, they're hard arguments to defend publicly and to make people understand.
Sure.
So I think politically, I do expect we probably would.
And you don't have any qualms about overriding a veto of a Democratic president?
I'd rather not, but you have to do it on the merits. I think on the merits, this is an important bill.
Are there 9/11 families who have told you that they plan to sue Saudi Arabia?
Haven't told me personally, but certainly we know. I've spoken to some of the lawyers. Yes,
that there will.
Now, let me be very clear. Saudi Arabia may very well win in court. I mean, I've seen no absolute proof or real proof that Saudi Arabia was behind this. All this does is clarify a jurisdictional question that the American court can hear the case, and they have to come up with proof. And I don't know that they have the proof. Maybe they do, maybe they don't.
19 out of the 20 hijackers were
Saudi citizens.
Were Saudi citizens.
And that's suggestive, but it also simply shows that that doesn't show the Saudi government necessarily was in it. It shows that there's an element in Saudi society, maybe a large one, that is very bad.
Do you believe the Saudi government was involved?
I don't know. I read those 28 pages before they were released, and they're suggestive. There's a lot of it's raw intelligence. There's a lot of stuff about A met B, and B was a friend of C, and C was a terrorist, and maybe not. The 9/11 Commission, which had reviewed that, said that there was no real evidence or proof. But again, I think that this is for a court. These people, the relatives, the 9/11 families deserve the opportunity to try to prove that in court.
Yeah.
And that's what this bill does.
Showdown between the Congress and the White House over the September 11 legislation. Co-author of it in the House, here in the studio with us, Congressman Jerry Nadler from New York. You have a question or a comment for the good Congressman, 866-55-PRESS. Quick break. We'll be right back.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 25 minutes after the hour from New York Magazine. Marin Kogan joins us at the half hour. Congressman Jerry Nadler here in the studio with us. Congressman, I want to ask you about maybe a lame duck issue, which should not have been put off for the lame duck, but and that's about Merrick Garland, the Supreme Court nominee. First of all, I can anticipate your take on the fact that the Congress has just refused to confirm him, not doing their job. Unprecedented,
Clearly.
Right?
Well, they've staged delays, and it's not just Merrick Garland. There's something like 96 pending federal judgeship nominations at all levels. But the idea of someone in February of the president's last term is saying that for the entire year they're not going to even consider his nomination. And you're going to have an 8-member Supreme Court for an entire term, or maybe term and a half, is unprecedented and wrong, obviously.
And what do you think the chances are that, no matter how the election turns out, that they will nominate, particularly if Hillary is elected, that they will confirm Merrick Garland before January?
I suspect that they would. They would reveal themselves, although they've been revealed long times about this, as total hypocrites, because they swear they won't, and they swear this is about the American people have the right to decide through electing a new president who gets on the Supreme Court. But they will look at Merrick Garland, who is about as moderate or conservative a candidate as a Democratic president would nominate. Pretty liberal on some issues, but on criminal justice issues, for example, fairly conservative, or at least moderate.
Yeah.
And they'll figure he's probably more conservative than anybody Hillary would nominate, assuming Hillary might not put him back. And they might do that regardless of the fact that they've sworn they wouldn't.
With just about a little less than a minute left, but I meant to ask you on September 11 about the air quality in September 11. Remember, this was a big issue at that time. And now Christine Todd Whitman?
Well, Christy Todd Whitman, starting 2 days after the attack, said the air was safe to breathe. When she said that there was no scientific evidence one way or the other, she kept saying that when we had all the scientific evidence, which said the air was not safe to breathe. And I remember in the weeks and in the weeks after it, the mayor who went along with Christy Todd Whitman, Rudy Giuliani, reopened Stuyvesant High School, which is right there. And I was telling parents, do not send your kids back. I was telling people, do not go to work. You're going to get poisoned. The air is toxic. And we knew it. And we had we commissioned tests from individuals. We sent it from testing companies.
Got to stop you there. But now she admits she was wrong and you were right.
Except she says that she was simply following the advice of the EPA scientists, and that's a lie.
This is the Bill Press Show.